Here's how your B2B tech company is going to add 50 plus monthly meetings into your sales pipeline and get an 8-figure increase in valuation in 90 days without ever having to rely on an event, inbound marketing, or partnerships, staying under 10 salespeople if you need to, never ever having to struggle to recruit the right sales talent, all while reducing tech stack costs. That's exactly what we've done for this enterprise SaaS that I can't name because they did get a 42 million Series A after installing this system. Before working with us, the problems that they were facing were endless, scary board meetings where they were trying to come up with new strategies. They were going to lots of events, but no one was at events to buy their product. They were taking a spray and pray approach where they were losing reputation. They constantly were training and hiring new salespeople, but eventually they churned because it's impossible to know who's good or not in an interview. They weren't looking forward to work each week because nothing felt right. Nothing felt like it was working, but they spent hours building a great product. Yeah. No one knew about it. The competition then was accelerating past them because really they lacked the systematic ability to get in the rooms with the right people. And as we worked with them, we discussed that if their product is in front of the right person, they will buy. And I'm sure that's the same for you. If your product is in front of the right person, they will buy. All you need is a repeatable way to identify the right person, a frictionless way to get the product in front of them, infrastructure to speak to enough of those people, and a predictable system that helps the person invest into the product. So we answered that through cold calling. But when people hear cold calling, they get scared because they're used to a range of different issues with cold calling, such as good SDRs not wanting to stay SDRs, people not trusting cold calls, cold calling coming across desperate, the new spam filters that you get on iPhones and Google nowadays, where it felt like it made it impossible to get through to the right person, sales reps in the team not actually calling, ultimately making it a unreliable source of meetings. It's okay for 1 or 2 extra a month, but not something that you'd want to bet on. So let me walk you through the step-by-step that we took with this client so you can replicate it and book 50 monthly meetings yourself. So first you need to build out an AI knowledge base. This answers the need for a predictable system that helps the person invest into the product. So we use Glen Coco for this. We took all of the marketing data, any historic sales calls, any customer information that the client had, and we ingested it into Glen Coco to build this custom AI knowledge base. This catalogs unique selling points, competitors, and common objections, along with a lot more. And this becomes your source of truth for any callers or reps or salespeople working on booking meetings for you. The benefit to the salespeople of having this knowledge base is that it means that they have enough inside language to come across like experts in the space, have all the inside lingo without having to go into all the fine details. It also meant that we could replicate what already worked for them at a larger scale because you don't want to reinvent the wheel. Don't fix what's not broken. A big mistake here that a lot of businesses take is they only look at the internal info. So you need to go out to the market, go out to your buyers, go out to the people that will be interested in your product and see how they communicate, see how they talk, see how they explain the pain that they're in that your product solves. Next, we worked on the scripting and the lead generation. So this is to answer the repeatable way to identify the right person for them. To actually get the data of who to contact, we use multiple data sources. If you rely on one data source, you run the risk of wasting a lot of your sales team's time, which ultimately takes them away from selling. So we will scrape from ZoomInfo, Apollo, Cognism, Full and Rich, UpLeads, D7 People Labs, as many as possible to collect as much data for who may be the right person to speak to for this product. Once we had all of the data, we then spoke to our clients and spoke to multiple people in the organization to get buy-in that if we put them in front of this person, it would be helpful, profitable, and beneficial for them to meet, and they're likely to close the deal. Because what we really want to avoid is the sales team feeling like they have to sell a deal to the person that we've put them in front of, and then the rest of the organization suffers because it isn't a true ideal fit for them. Once we had all of that information, we could then define what a qualified call or a qualified meeting would look like for them, because then we knew if we got them in front of that person, it would make commercial sense. Finally, for this part of the process, we developed 5 screenplays or call scripts to test various different angles, and we sent them across to the client to get approval, because we want to make sure the messaging is in line with the whole organization. Here's an example of how we ensured that the meetings that we were booking were qualified. We have parts of our screenplay that are specific to identify the qualification of the person that we're speaking to and make sure it fits the criteria that we already defined. So now we have all the data in place. Our next step is to actually go out and recruit the sales team to go and book meetings for the client. So when hiring and recruiting sales reps, the process we took is we require reps to submit voice notes of the intro, script role play, and objection handling. We have a pool of 170 reps. We select the best performers. And we use a launch showcase to build excitement and broadcast it out to the reps so they know the campaign's coming, to learn about the campaign, to do training on the campaign, and start to hear how the language is used in natural conversation. Because we scrape from multiple different data sources already, the reps are keen to call for us because they aren't going to waste time on trying to find the different contacts for other decision makers within the business. So they know they need to just go out and perform the screenplays in the best ability with the correct tone and pacing. So we started to get a lot of auditions coming in. And from these auditions, all of the reps were speaking the same language as the target customer, but the screenplays were crafted in a way that they were able to stay above the fine detail so the buyers don't get confused. And when reviewing the SDRs, we see how simply and concisely reps can communicate the product, also whilst taking note of the pacing and the tonality, because that's a huge factor for cold calling. So we've got all of the auditions coming in, but we need to select the breach team for our initial testing. So we launched a small breach team of 5 reps using our AI-powered dialer, meaning that each rep can make up to 1,000 dials per day if required for the campaign. We track all of the pickup rate, the objections, the booking rate to see which script is performing best. And we then refine the winning script based on the real world data from the first week. The benefits of the breach team is we get faster feedback loops. We're not having to take too many reps out of their day-to-day to go into huddles to mind map and strategize for the campaign and share their feedback. For our breach team, we always use more experienced reps. It's more of a controlled variable. We know these reps can and have booked meetings in the same space before. This is another mistake that people make when cold calling, is they use the less experienced people in a breach phase, or they have too many people support them in the breach phase, which takes too many people out of their day-to-day, and it becomes a mess in trying to track the data. Also, not using a power dialer means that it may take you 4 weeks to get the same amount of data that we can get in 1. Here's an example of the winning script that we identified after the initial breach phase with this campaign. And then eventually we had everything in place. So it was a matter of scaling and ensuring that we were conducting warm handoffs. So with this campaign, we scaled the team up to 45 reps once we had that proven strategy. We implemented warm handoffs. So reps that are booking the meetings turn up to the booked meeting to hand off to the internal closers. And this enabled us to make sure the internal team keeps a high close rate by eliminating any awkward small talk at the start of the meeting. To scale, you need to work out your math of sales, figure out how many reps you need to book the amount of meetings that you require each month. Warm handoffs cut out any of the fluff talk so the relationship isn't impacted. Reps turn up to the call, summarize what they spoke about before, and then introduce the internal closer that is on the call with them. It has a second benefit for reps attending the meetings, and that's because they get insight into the AE's conversations that they can use on the next calls to increase their conversions. Again, a big mistake that people make in this part of the process is just letting the prospect get passed between different sales team members. By the time that they come to close, they may have spoken to 5 different people and just completely ditched by the previous rep on the last step. Also, when it starts to work, a lot of businesses turn around and say, okay, we just need to do as much volume as possible to reach their goals without looking at the math of sales, looking at how many dials lead to how many connects, lead to how many booked meetings, and then how many booked meetings actually show up and are qualified. So you need to look through all of the data and work out how many meetings do we need a month and how many dials does that equate to. Once you've worked out your sales math, make sure you've got a smooth, warm handoff process. and have your SDRs turn up to the calls and listen to AE conversations. And this doesn't just work for one firm. We've installed the same system for several other firms. For example, Hyper raised a 15 million valuation and was generating approximately K a year in revenue. My outsourced SDR team outperformed their internal SDR team, and eventually we replaced their entire internal SDR function with my system. They've now allocated a $1 million a year budget to spend with us. Notch, we helped Notch expand from Canada into the US market, consistently delivering 10 to 15 qualified meetings per month. And that was their cap that they set. We could have gone for more. And Harcourts, we built a high velocity meeting engine that booked 16 meetings in one day. We're currently scaling their system to deliver anywhere between 80 and 100 qualified meetings per month as they recoup the revenue from working with us. In our system, there's 3 core pillars. First, we bridge the AI and human expertise. So this is the core of success, ensuring that there is a strong AI infrastructure for the data and the dialing and the knowledge base, and building out an elite team of sales reps that are vetted through rigorous auditions and training to maximize the efficiency. We validated before we expanded, so the breach phase is essential for success. It's the fastest way to identify the winning screenplays and ensuring you're not scaling waste. And finally, efficiency in a handoff process. So streamlining that transition in the sales funnel for your buyers, eliminating the unnecessary small talk, ensuring that you can maintain a high close rate. Now, if you're watching this thinking, all right, I now know how my sales team is going to crush it in 2026. That's exactly where most decision makers get stuck. Understanding a strategy doesn't put meetings on the calendar. A system does. So instead of trying to remember 20 different ideas and hoping your team actually executes them, click the link in the description and schedule a 15-minute call to see a roadmap of how this system could fit in your business with numbers and ROI. Outbound still works. It's just brutal without a system.